This week, we're dropping a season 3 bonus rewind episode, and boy, it's a great one. In the spirit of Thanksgiving, we're rewinding to one of my all-time favorite conversations with Angela Cheng-Simini, the HR director and leader who proves that soft skills are actually power skills. This replay is all about gratitude, growth, and the gift of perspective, how to step away before burnout takes you out, and why courage and psychological safety belong in the same room. So, this is what it really looks like to lead with humans, like a human. So, as you're wrapping up emails or peeling those potatoes, lean in and let Angela's wisdom reset your perspective. This is the Cultivate Experience. Welcome, relational leaders and listeners. This is Cultivate, your podcast destination where we celebrate thriving relational leaders and encourage each other along the influence journey. I am Wendy F. Adams, your host and strategic guide. I believe work shouldn't be a 4-letter word, but should inspire, challenge, and fulfill. Through a high challenge and high support model, we will explore the recipe for relational leadership that drives meaningful change. After all, as leaders, we're either driving progress or we're driving the problem. So let's grow together. Today, I'm excited to welcome another thriving relational leader who's making a lasting impact in her sphere of influence. Welcome, Angela Cheng-Simini, Head of Human Resources at Chronicle of Philanthropy, to the Cultivate Experience.
Thank you so much, Wendy. I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Angela, we had fun in our first just in the green room time that we had. I mean, we connected on so many different things. Our time today is going to go so fast based on just what we've already been able to talk about. So we're going to I'm going to do my best to guide us through keeping us on track. But we're going to continue on in this space of, really real life situations and how we can all celebrate in those spaces and where are those places of support that we can give to each other. It's no secret for anyone who engages with me. And I think even in our short time together, the why people do what they do, why they're connected, why organizations exist, it's integral and critical to success in moving forward. Because when we diverge away from that, well, that's where we get the drift. So I just want to dive in and say that intentional space of the why, what does that look like for you, your why, and the work that you're currently doing?
So I kind of fell into my work in human resources because my dad chose my university. He didn't choose it. He found it for me and I applied and he was right. So I gravitated towards a curriculum that was mostly very human resources oriented. I got my first internship and I've just never looked back. And fundamentally, human resources is really about how do you help the people, the human assets, if you will, thrive and be most productive. And what we've learned is that in an environment where people feel valued and respected and can speak their mind is where they can do their best work. And that is about what really strong communities bring is safe spaces where divergent perspectives can come together in service of a greater good. And I think that's incredibly gratifying work.
And there's no doubt, you're absolutely correct, right? When we talk about the work that we're doing, when we can say this is the purpose behind, and sometimes it's the purpose behind our pain. I mean, we'll get there, right? Those challenging spaces. But when you can stay connected to that place of, I am in my purpose and walking that out. And then what I'm hearing from you is that in your role and in the sector that you're working in, that you're able to do that for others. Wow. What of a level up at that point in time to know it's not just about you as the leader, but what does that look like for your team? I like to talk about high support, high challenge. Like that to me is that leveled up 100x leader. That's relational leadership, that it's a both and. And in our first conversation, you spoke that language out before I could even say it. So I just want to hear, being known for that type of leadership, can you give us an example of how you apply that in your current role with the team that you're serving and then implement that for them to pay that forward?
So particularly in this role, because I'm still so new, I'm only 2 months into it. I'm doing I'm doing even more listening than I would ordinarily,
Mm.
because there's just still so much about the organization, about the people inside it that I don't know. And if there's one really fast track way to build trust and build your credibility, it's just not to talk less than the other person, right? To just really be absorbing and leaning in and being present for that conversation, understanding what they're going through, what it is they're trying to achieve, and then figuring how you can help and support that objective. So I've been trying to do that. Because that's what my experiences has shown me, is that if I take the time to build the relationships, then you go slow to go fast, right? Then everything else will follow a lot more quickly after that.
Which is counterintuitive thinking, right? We're like, there's
Mhm.
so much ahead of us that we have to get done. Everything says fast move, go, go. We've
Yeah.
got to check the
Yeah.
boxes. We've got. And so when you walk out that approach, people want to be seen and heard. So I mean, I've got to believe that is actually like celebrated. Oh gosh, she's taking the time to get to know me. But you've got senior leadership who say, we have initiatives, we have objectives that we have to move forward on. What is there a tension space there? And if so, how do you speak that out on both sides?
So I think I've been able to balance the tension here more easily than I have in other places, only because it's a 40-person firm. So
Mm,
one of the real tactical ways that you can build those relationships is, so I've had a couple people reach out to me with sort of basic HR questions, something about their benefits.
mhm,
And as soon as it comes through, I want to respond. I want to get on it, because I want, for that moment, that is the most important issue to that person. Right? That's what they want to know. And the sooner I can deliver the answer, the sooner they can mentally check that off and get back to whatever else they're doing. So if I can lighten someone else's load by giving them the information or the resources, whatever it is that they need, then they're going to remember, oh, hey, Angela's going to be responsive to me. She's going to get me the information I need. I'm going to file that away, because then the next time, if I have another ask, I have an experience with her that says she's helpful, that she thinks that I'm important, that my issue is going to take up space on her plate, because that's how she treats me. That's how she treats all of us. In contrast with the senior leadership team, yes, it is about
mhm,
understanding what they've got on their plate, and in some cases, helping them remove stuff off their plate, delivering
mm.
clarity on what are the things that are really going to move the needle. Because, like all ambitious leadership teams, there's 1,000 things they want to do, but they only have bandwidth to do five. So how do you get rid of the 995 things to do the five things that really matter? And that's part of the conversations I'm starting to have with them now.
Well, and that's what I'm hearing. You're able to have those conversations. That means you have a place at the table, right? Because if you don't, as the head of HR, if you don't have that place at the table to be able to have those conversations, then there's this gap. You recognize their need, but when do you get to actually speak it out or have that dialogue to say, this is why we're going to take it slow in this space so that we can go further? Because that's what I heard you say, right? We want this to be sustainable. I think that that's a component that we're challenged as leaders. Really, you can remove whatever sector we're talking about. Is that space of, yes, there is much to get done and accomplished, and we want it to last. And so I'm interested, and you've kind of spoken that out to an extent, but we're going to go, we learn best in the difficult, let's be honest, like in the challenging spaces, that's where we come out with the most education. So you're talking this through with team, and you're having this conversation higher at the higher level with senior leadership. People get tired. There's this thing called burnout.
Mhm.
What does that look? And that may not just be in the space you're currently in. I know this hasn't been that long, but this is not a new thing. How do you speak into that personally, and then as you are speaking into others?
Well, for me personally, I had to step away. And so I had to
Mm,
step away from my full-time job at an organization that I was deeply committed to, surrounded by people that I had a great respect for. But it wasn't sustainable for me anymore. And there were other things that were calling to me that said, hey, there is there is more life to be lived than just this one role. There are other ways in which I can contribute and give back. And having this commitment, this obligation to do really well by this organization means necessarily that I can't give attention to other things. And so I wanted to take a break from that grind, as well as find space for myself to do the things that were going to bring me different kinds of joy. And there was just also the real practical lesson, which is that people in our friend circle passed away really suddenly. And that was a stark reminder, right, that I have fewer years ahead than I do behind, right? I'm not likely going to live to 108. How do I make the most of the time that I have on earth? And how can I use that for good? Some of it being selfish for my own good, but also selflessly for others around
And you said that, and I think we've been kind of programmed in to talk about ourselves, to take care of ourselves. Is it selfish?
me.
But we're using that time and that health and wellness for others.
Yeah.
So it really is, right, not pouring from that empty cup. I have to say that that's one of the bravest statements that I've actually heard out loud. I know that we know it, but to say that's the ultimate, what you just shared is the ultimate step back, the ultimate pause. We talked about sitting and slowing it down to listen to others, to listen to ourselves. You listened and said, you know what? It wasn't a bad experience. I'm committed to, and if I want to be here for the long term, here on earth here,
Yeah.
and being able
And
to do more, this is what it's going to take. That conversation doesn't happen often in leadership. And I don't know how often it's happening in yours, in the sector of human resources, truly being a human that is resourceful for others, because you're walking the talk. How important is that as you are building team to be able to, what they hear from you is what they see from you?
oh my gosh, I mean, hypocrisy is the ultimate
Mm,
destroyer of trust and credibility. You can't say one thing and do something else and then expect others to believe in you. You can't preach health and wellness to other people if they see that you're running yourself ragged. Um, yeah, it was one of the most difficult professional decisions I've ever had to make.
mm.
Really, really have and continue to have a deep love for that organization, for the people in it. But I knew that I was probably not going to have the energy to sustain that level of performance. And I didn't want someone to say, you know what, Angela, you're kind of off your game. I wanted to get out while the going was still good, and make room for someone else who could bring fresh energy, fresh perspective. And so it's mutual benefit for everyone involved.
Well, and you hit it. You hit it before I could even say it. That decision wasn't just about you, which is important, and it wasn't just for organization. What we're talking about has to be mutually beneficial. And as leaders, that's the place that we really need to be working from.
Mm.
And so even in the process of human resource, you're at the beginning stages. Someone who's just considering the organization. Do you make it your practice in this space to bring that to the forefront? How important it is going to be for them to be healthy, to be sustainable in the work that they're even considering?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think I've ever posed that to someone coming in.
Mm,
Um, but I think maybe I should. And it's probably a question that's rightfully posed to anybody who's looking to join an organization, right? How are you going to take care of yourself so that you can show up at work in the best possible way? And let me tell you how we're going to take care of you so that you can show up in the best possible way.
And really, you brought that question to my mind. It's not like I've sat in that space as a hiring manager and not said that. But when you brought to the forefront the importance of the mutual, like how important that was, that it was a mutual decision and how it's going to affect both sides, like, why not start on the upfront and
Mm.
in setting that standard? And we talk about benefits. Is that not one of those, we might call it intangible but true benefits, to know, wow, they're setting this tone that it is going to be in what's best for both, and that they care. So that's really where that came from. You said it. How many years do we have ahead of us versus what's behind us? I think I'm in that same space with you. I've done the math. I'm not going to live to that that grand old age. But when you think of just even the future of the sector that you're currently in human resources, what do you believe are the most critical skills and approaches for leaders to make sure that they're developing in order to create that sustainability?
They're what I call the power skills. So they're probably more
Mm,
commonly known as the soft skills. right? So
Oh.
compassion and empathy and EQ. But I'm trying to change and shift the vernacular to be power skills because I believe they bring more horsepower to the technical hard skills, right? So if you're in marketing or you're a coder or you're in sales, but all of those functions require a level of emotional intelligence. So things like being able to hear, being able to constructively disagree, the ability to take feedback, the ability to collaborate, all of those soft, powerful skills are the ones
Mm-hmm.
that people entering the workforce now are demanding. I read a headline just the other day about Gen Z's not quitting. They're just not putting up with the style of leadership they're experiencing right now. Right. So there's so much literature being talked about that right now we've got 5 generations in the workforce. And probably
Yes.
just by law, the law of large numbers, the people who are in the C suite are probably among the oldest generations. And the kind of leadership that they learn and the kind of leadership they practice is likely to be very different than what millennials want. Right. So if I talk to my kids who are 27 and 25, they want a place where they can bring their whole selves to work. They want compassion. They want work-life balance. They want all the things that older generations wanted, but didn't know that they could ask for. This generation is being much more vocal about that. So I think if you're asking me what skills are necessary, that's what contemporary leadership looks like. It looks like all of the power skills.
Well, first of all, you're speaking my language, and pun intended. I've said for so long we need to change the mindset. We've got to be able to change our vocabulary. And so
Yes.
when we hear soft skills, they kind of get pushed to the back burner. Like, okay, if you have them, and we'll work on that at some point in time. We really hope you have it. But power? Oh, that says importance. That says it's driving. And I think those are the words you, right? It is what's going to empower those hard skills to, to actually show up and to last. So I
Yeah.
love the fact that you're bringing that space to, if we're going to change 5 generations, I don't know when that's happened, all sitting around the table in organizations. How do we highlight, right, those, the what every voice is bringing to the table? And I don't know, let's face it, I believe that C suite really is ready to many of them are ready to say it's my time to step out, but they're not confident that they can. If we can open these conversations with their younger teammates around the table, they can feel confident to say, you know what, there is someone here who's going to be here for much longer than I am, who can keep the mantle of the mission going. You know, vulnerability, we've talked about this, and you've already been vulnerable just in this short period of time. So it plays a significant role for you. Is that well received when you speak that out to teammates, to staff, and dare I say even to your leadership, that that is something that cannot be an afterthought?
I mean, I do. I don't know that I express it quite so explicitly, but I do talk about the moments where it's okay to say, you know what, I don't know.
Mm.
Or to say, you know what, I'm going to
Okay.
defer to my colleague because they know better than I. Or to say, you know what, mea culpa. I made a bad decision. I'm going to learn from that. And how do we do that better? So those are all different ways of saying that that's how you behave vulnerably, even if you don't call it vulnerability, right? Because for some people, that's a sign of weakness. When actually
Yes.
it's a leadership strength. When people are can see you willing to shed the armor and be human, just quote like the rest of us. I think that's incredibly inspiring. Those are the kinds of leaders that people will follow and will want to do really, really well for.
Well, and I think you're groundbreaking in the way. I know it sounds simple what you just said, but it's not easy. But to
Mm,
change that mindset, change that trajectory, take that being vulnerable is not being weak, it's actually showing great strength,
mm,
right? And to turn that, you again, in your role and working both with the teams and with senior leadership, saying the same thing, they're hearing that same message. I think that's a key component that your colleagues, the sector of human resources, I say you're the unsung heroes. Like, that's a huge job to be able to turn the tide on what it's been. And you know, it's not check it at the door, like you said. You know, the whole
mm.
person is coming to work. So how do you, and not or do the the job, perform well, have a high performing team. And so I am curious in that space of what are those practical steps. We use the words professional development. How does that play out? And it may not be that you have a strong handle on that in your current role, but professional development in human resources, is it just a thing to do, or where's that intentionality?
So, one of the things that I was proud to sponsor in my previous organization was a leadership development program. And it was
Mm,
voluntary, but by the time I left, I think they were running its fourth cohort. And our head of organizational development and her team built out a 4-month program that equipped people leaders with the skills they needed so that they could be authentic and genuine and sincere and vulnerable. And it ran them through case studies and simulations, and they had exercise, and they had practice, and they had, and they, and I, one of the hallmarks of the success is that they then go to LinkedIn and they say, you know what, I've been certified in this level up program. I am now a better, stronger leader because I've gone through this learning curve. Whatever the program is, I think all organizations have the resources available to do that. It's really making the time and commitment to say, this is important. We want to make sure that our people leaders have all the skills they need because it pays back in, exponentially. So, I leadership development, organizational development, all those things are easy to pay lip service to, but to actually give your folks the time and the mind
mm.
space to go do that work is where the rubber meets the road. And I'm pleased to say that, at Harvard Business Publishing, we were willing to let managers commit that kind of time.
And you're absolutely right. It's one thing to sit in a class, go through a workshop. Do I actually have the space then to walk out those tools? Those things that I garner, does it just stay in the notebook, or am
Mhm.
I going to be given an opportunity to put them into practice and to hone them?
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And to set that expectation on the upfront. Here at Cultivate, what we want to do is to continue to celebrate the things that are taking place in leadership in a positive way, the way that we're changing mindset, and be a place of support in those spaces that are challenging. If you had to, and I'm sure, like most sectors, there's a list, but if you had to say, in your experience, what's that big, hairy, audacious challenge that the human resources sector is working through? Or if we had, and it's not magical, but had that magic wand that we'd say, if we could address this, it would really be a game changer.
So I've been thinking a lot about the concept of organizational courage. I say
Mm,
concept not because I invented it, but it's the other side of the coin of psychological safety, right? So we've been hearing a lot about that. And I was trying to come
yes.
up with an apt metaphor, and this is it doesn't work perfectly, but it's what I've got so far, which is let's say you're learning how to ride a horse. And typically what they do is they give you an older horse, a more gentle horse, so that when the rider gets on for the first time, right, they're not worrying about being thrown off the horse. So that horse can sense, okay, this is a new rider. I'm going to take it easy. I'm going to go slow. That horse is providing psychological safety, right? They're making it safe for the
Hmm.
rider to get on. But at the same time, the rider has to have the courage to get on the horse. You can tell them all day long that the horse is fine, you're not, but the person has to get on the horse. And so that's courage. So the corollary to the organization is managers and leaders have to provide psychological safety, and employees also have to find the bravery to speak up when it's not perfectly safe, because sometimes those conversations are necessary and needed, and everybody can come out stronger. So if I had to think about an imperative for organizations right now, who I think everyone is just struggling to survive, I don't know that there's any
Yes,
organization right now that has it easy, right? There's so much turmoil, there's so much uncertainty going on around the
that's it.
world that everybody is just sort of living day to day, that it will require psychological safety and organizational courage. So we need to teach our managers how to make an environment that's safe. And we have to give employees the skills to know how and when to speak their piece.
Wow. Courage. Right?
Mm,
Again, not something that's brand new. You owned
no.
it in, like, this is not mine that but how often do we just gloss over? And gosh, not just gloss over, but do just the opposite because we're not intentional in creating
Yes.
that space, that we actually do harm and make it unsafe, scary. I'm not going to ask. I'm going to be on eggshells. I love that you brought, again, back to the both and. These are not things that are, mutually exclusive. We've got to be doing both of these things together. And we talked about maybe, waving the magic wand to make this happen. It's not so far off. Like, this is not something that we have to build from ground zero, but we do have to, as you just spoke it out so well, address it. We do talk about getting on the horse and things like that, but to be able to say, yeah, I got to be brave enough to get up on the horse or even get close to it,
Yeah. And get
is
back on when I'm thrown off, right?
ah,
The resilience, right?
Angela.
The grit.
Yes.
So maybe the metaphor does work.
It does. I think it just keeps on going because you're right. Let's speak out. Just because you get up there doesn't mean you stay up there. But then what? And what? And knowing that you have a circle of support.
Yeah.
You said it, to be able to own mistakes, to be able to say, I could have done that better. But all of that has to be in a place that is safe. And we cannot just take for granted. We've got to be intentional in continuing to create that space, especially as leaders change and new teammates come in. I think that it's just been a wonderful picture of your journey. And again, we'll say the name of the organization and what you're doing with Chronicle of Philanthropy, but it's not just there. Angela's showing up as Angela each and every time, whatever chapter that you're in, and you're recognizing those spaces that are making a difference in those that you're called to lead. And I think that's the beautiful part of your story, which then becomes parts of other people's story. Before we wrap up, I want you to be able to share with audience what's something that's happening at Chronicle of Philanthropy if people want to engage in that space. We've got audience that definitely is in that space of the nonprofit that you want to highlight or point them to that they should know is coming up.
Yeah, please follow us on LinkedIn, or even better, subscribe to our newsletter. I applied to the job at the Chronicle because it was part-time. So it was personally beneficial. But now that I understand the mission of the organization, which is we provide information, insights, and development for people who are working to advance the common good, I feel like I was drawn to this role for a very specific reason. Given that nonprofits in particular are now under attack by this administration, threats of being stripped of their nonprofit status, threats of being shut down because their mission might be too aligned with a perspective that doesn't meet with theirs. Nonprofits have an important role to play in American society and in global society, but American nonprofits in particular, and foundations and donors. So if there is a cause that you support, if there are people in that sector that that work there, follow us, like us, subscribe to us, because we have so much information that we are putting out there that will help anybody in that space stand up a little bit taller to live to fight another day. So join us there.
I love that picture. I love that stand up, right? And know that you're not standing alone. I mean,
Yes.
that is, you've spoken that out throughout our time together today, is that standing is tough and it takes bravery and all, but you're not doing it alone. If we're in that space of doing that together. Angela, you have done such a phenomenal job in painting a picture for us of hope that I can't say thank you enough. You gave us an inside look to you and you were vulnerable there, but then also what's happening at the Chronicle of Philanthropy and how we can engage in building that forward. You said it. Our foundation in our country was really built in this space of what's happening within the nonprofit sector. You think of the Statue of Liberty and how people came together to be able to pour in grassroots to bring that here and to build that out. So it's just been such a pleasure. And I can't say thank you enough for saying yes to this opportunity.
Well, thank you for having me, Wendy. It's been my pleasure.
We talk about, I know relational leadership is so important to what we are doing, no matter what sector we're in. We all bring our special flavor, as I say, to the mix of that recipe. And so I just look forward to each and every episode where we can stir things up and just be better together. Thanks so much for joining today. Before we sign off today, I want to send out huge appreciation to our listeners for tuning in. I hope you felt seen, heard, and inspired to level up your own leadership journey. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. And if you're ready to level up your leadership, connect with me at cultivateforgood.com. That's cultivateforgood.com.